As we learn much more about the molecule and we learn a lot more about our skin, we've been able to elaborate on that. And now we get over 95% success rate with the Curaderm for basal cell carcinoma. Similarly, for squamous cell carcinoma. And it all depends, of course, on the size of the tumor to see how rapid regression we will get. Small tumors we get rid of in a matter of a couple of weeks, but for large tumors, it takes up to 14 weeks.
Today is a very special interview, one that I have tried to secure for a very long time and finally made it happen. It's Dr. Bill Cham. Now, if you don't know who Dr. Bill Cham is, he wrote a book called The Eggplant Cancer Cure. He is the developer of a product called Curaderm. Some of you have heard of Curaderm. Dr. Cham has a degree in chemistry, a degree in biochemistry, doctorate in the School of Medicine, and he has over 150 scientific publications, and he identified a compound called BEC, which is found in eggplant and devil's apple, and he did a lot of testing with this compound and learned that this compound is an anti-cancer compound, kills cancer cells, and especially certain types of skin cancer. He did a lot of research on it and used it on patients and had remarkable success. Wrote a book about it. There's before and after photos, a lot of full color before and after photos in the Eggplant Cancer Cure book, and I've had that book for many years. And so I'm excited to talk to Dr. Bill Cham. He really is a legend to me, and I'm excited to introduce you to him. So Dr. Cham, thank you for taking the time to do this. Where are you in the world?
At the moment, thank you for inviting us. We're very privileged to be interviewed by you. Where are we at the moment? We are east of Queensland, Australia. That's on the east side. And approximately 3 hours by plane on an island called Vanuatu.
Vanuatu, yes.
Yeah, Vanuatu is a tropical island, and it's a beautiful island. The reason we're here is that I originally come from the island of Aruba.
Yes.
And I used to travel a lot to the United States. And once there was a stopover in Vanuatu, and I liked it very much. So I thought it would be a very nice place to semi-retire or retire. And here's where we are at the moment.
That's wonderful. Well, I'd love to talk about your work and your research in cancer and natural compounds that kill cancer. Will you tell that story?
Yes, sure. In the early 80s, a colleague of mine, Merv Gilliver, who is a veterinarian, he approached me and he asked me whether I was interested or whether I have heard of a herb that actually showed promise for treating cancer. In particular, he was working for a butcher who was dealing a lot with cattle, of course. And they found the cattle owners, they found that the cattle were rubbing their eyes against this plant material known as the devil's apple in Australia, which was introduced into Australia from South Africa. And they found that cattle had actually ocular squamous cell carcinoma. That's a type of cancer that grows around and in the eyes of cattle. And from their observations, they found that they thought that they were getting some regression of the cancer. With that information, he came and he saw me and he asked me whether I was interested or not. At that particular time, I was working on atherosclerosis. And I had some free time available, I suppose, in the evenings. And I said I'd look into it, which I did. And that's how it all started. It took us a while to actually do all of the, because at the time, a plant material is presented to you, and they said there could be some anti-cancer properties within this plant. But this plant material has thousands of different types of molecules. So which one should you be looking at? Knowing at the time that vincristine and vinblastin are alkaloids extracted from the Vinca rosea, the periwinkle plant, I thought maybe if there's any truth in this observation, that it may be an alkaloid. So we started to extract the alkaloids that were present in the plant material, which were hitherto unknown, of course. And we were able to actually isolate these glycoalkaloids, and we found that it is a combination of sugar bound onto alkaloid. And once we had identified the molecule, we were able to extract them, and we did some preliminary studies looking at type of cancer that was growing in mice, and which we've shown to be very, very effective for those particular type of cancers. And based on that, we have been able to elaborate a bit more, and we've shown with a vast variety of cancers in cell culture work that it was very effective. How and why it worked, we did not know at the time. It took us about 2 decades, really, to find out exactly how it works. And now we have a treatment for skin cancer because we know exactly how it works and what type of additive materials you have to add to it. And the purity is very, very important as well. So it took a long, long time. It's not as simple as finding a plant material and saying it has anti-cancer properties and mixing up and treating cancer. It doesn't work that way, unfortunately. At the time, however, I thought maybe that was the way to go.
So the cream that is available now, worldwide, is called BEC5 Curaderm, correct?
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
Was there ever an oral version? Was it ever available, or some type of variation of BEC that could be taken orally for other types of cancers?
Initially, when we were doing the work, of course, there were many, many patients who were very interested because the treatment they had at the time was not doing any good for them. So they were desperate to try something different. And with a limited amount of patients, some oral preparations were made, and it showed promise. Promise in that it appears, if you look at the tumor markers, that the tumor markers were decreasing, but not enough to say that it was effective, orally taken. However, we were then actually, I knew then that the anti-cancer molecules had to be in contact with the cancer cells for it to be effective. So we had to do a lot of what is known as pharmacology with the drug. And as a consequence, we knew exactly how it was working and in what form it could be used. We did a lot of intralesion injection into tumors, especially in animals, and we've shown conclusively that it was very effective. Based on those observations, we continued to do some work on skin cancer because I thought if you could get a molecule to interact with the skin cancer cells, it may prove to be effective. And that is the case. However, we have to overcome a lot of problems in order for the active ingredients to be able to penetrate and recognize the cancer cells without doing any harm to normal cells. And that's where the big benefit lies.
It's important to distinguish that you found it to be very effective for a squamous cell carcinoma and basal cell carcinoma specifically, but not necessarily melanoma, correct?
In cell culture studies, it's very effective against melanoma as well. We've proven that, but also other independent scientists worldwide, because we published the work, and thank goodness, it was well received by our scientists internationally, and there was a huge, huge interest in these molecules, and accordingly, they've been able to substantiate and elaborate on our observations. And it's for that reason, at the moment, it's carefully looking at to see whether it can be treated for internal cancers. Yes, we've shown in cell culture that it was very effective against melanoma. However, I must state, one must be very careful with melanoma because it tends to metastasize so rapidly. We looked at the patient, stage 0 to 2 melanoma, and it was effective using Curaderm. However, to go beyond that is very, very risky. And it's for that reason we are interested now to do phases and 3 clinical studies on melanoma stages 0 to 2.
What percentage of cancers treated, let's say basal cell or squamous cell, or maybe there's a difference between the response rate, but what did you see the response rate being with Curaderm for those types of cancers? Is it 50%, 90%, 100%?
Initially, whilst we were doing the developmental work, we actually use different formulations. And depending on the formulation, we were able to show that it was effective for a certain percentage of the patients. So we did concentrations ranging from 1 to 50% of the glycoalkaloids. And we've shown that, first of all, it was safe at those concentrations. And we've shown that it was about 40 or 50% effective using the formulation at the time. However, as we learn much more about the molecule and we learn a lot more about our skin, we've been able to elaborate on that. And now we get over 95% success rate with the Curaderm for basal cell carcinoma. Similarly, for squamous cell carcinoma. And it all depends, of course, on the size of the tumor to see how rapid regression we will get. Small tumors we get rid of in a matter of a couple of weeks, but for large tumors, and you'll see them in the photograph, it takes up to 14 weeks. However, the cosmetic outcome is really not comparable with any other treatment that's available for skin cancer. It's excellent.
And what you mean by that is that the skin heals up beautifully?
Absolutely. The way the cancer cells die with Curaderm is what is called an apoptosis. Apoptosis is a type of cell death that occurs normally in humans. For instance, in humans, maybe half a billion to a billion cells are shed from the skin every day. That's a natural process without doing the body any harm. And what we found that with skin cancer, and in particular the other cancers as well, they didn't have that natural effect in that after a period of time, the cancer cells died like normal cells do. We found there was something that actually kept them multiplying. So there's inhibition of apoptosis. And we found that the glycoalkaloids actually gets rid of that inhibition. So the cancer cells suddenly are exposed to normal cell death and they die off. And because of that, skin heals naturally. Whereas if you use necrosis, using another surgery, for instance, etc., you get necrosis, you get scar tissue, and it doesn't heal up very well because you may need, a further surgery to improve the lesion.
I see. Yeah, so it just facilitates this natural process of cell death, and the cancer cells die just like normal cells, and the body heals that area. Yeah, that's amazing. Is there any other research that you've done on other natural compounds for cancer?
And no, that took enough of my time. I think just working on the glycoalkaloids, it's over 2 decades. But we've been able to elaborate as to what is glycoalkaloids. Now we know the mode of action, which is very, very important to see whether it has other applications. And indeed, we've shown that with psoriasis, it's very effective against psoriasis as well. In a different formulation, however, with different additives, however, it's very, very effective. We published that work as well. So that's what we're working on at the moment to see whether we can get it out on the market. Because psoriasis is a huge problem for the population, as you know.
Yeah, it is a big problem. It would be wonderful to get that on the market. You'll have to keep me posted on that. So what else does a person need to know about your research and about Curaderm and what they need to do if they have a basal cell or squamous cell carcinoma or maybe an early stage melanoma?
Obviously, there are other methods available that do treat basal cell carcinoma and squamous cell carcinoma. And there's some good ones as well. But the best one at the moment is thought to be surgery, Mohs surgery. With Mohs surgery, what they're trying to achieve is to remove as many cancer cells from the skin with little damage to the normal skin tissue. So that's the best procedure that's available at the moment and is regarded as the gold standard. However, a paper is just in press at the moment in which we have compared that type of treatment with Curaderm. And with Curaderm, it works at a microscopic molecular level, working against the cancer cells. So once applied to the skin, with the right ingredients to get good penetrations, to get through the barrier, and we have to do a lot of work to be able to show what chemicals have to be added to it to achieve this phenomenon. Once it gets in contact with the cancer cells, even if normal cells are close to the cancer cells, it specifically seeks out and destroys the cancer cells by apoptosis. And because it does that, it achieves beyond what micrographic surgery is trying to achieve. Because every time you cut, you actually have to look under the microscope to see whether any cancer cells are present. And there, you cut again, you cut again, you cut again, until you see, okay, I don't have any cancer cells anymore, so it's been successful. In our case, you don't have to do that. You apply the cream, and the cream does it for you at the microscopic level. And that's where the huge, huge advantage lies. And because of that, of course, without having to cut, the cosmesis is so much improved that you don't have to actually do any stitching or any grafting, anything like that. So that's where the big, big advantage lies. Now, if you have to be also fair with surgery, you do that within 1 day. With Curaderm, it takes a few weeks, depending on what the tumor is. However, at the moment, if you were to try to see a dermatologist, it will take you about a month before you can get an appointment with a dermatologist. And if they feel that you have to do the treatment, surgical treatment, it takes them about over 300 days to see them again. Within that period of time, Curaderm will have got rid of you with the skin cancer. So that's where the advantage of the Curaderm lies as well.
Yeah, it makes sense to just go ahead and start using it, and you can make your appointment with a dermatologist, and by the time they see you, it might be gone.
Correct.
And
That's
you can,
exactly what happens.
yeah, no, that's wonderful. Are there any other skin conditions that Curaderm can be helpful for? Moles or birthmarks? I don't know. I'm just wondering.
Actinic keratosis, for sure. That's a precancerous growth, as you know, about 10% of actinic keratosis actually it's converted to squamous cell carcinoma. Now, with actinic keratosis, that's a huge, there's about um, 50 million cases a year in the United States. With BCCs and SCCs, it's about 5 to 6 million cases. So if you could treat the keratosis earlier on, in which you will need only 2 or 3 days treatment necessary to get rid of the keratosis, you're doing a lot of benefits down the track. I don't have to go through surgery or whatever. So keratosis, I think, is a huge um, condition that could be treated with Curaderm, and that's where most of the people are treating it at the moment as well.
And would you describe what it's actinic keratosis, correct?
Yes, actinic keratosis is actually caused by the ultraviolet light and on patients, and it's like a thick, scaly or crusty, non-healing lesion. You could feel it more than you can see it. You look at it, etc., and after a few days you think it's gone because it scales off, etc., but it comes back again. And if untreated, it can become a squamous cell carcinoma. It keeps on growing and growing and growing. So it's better to treat it when it's very, very small. In addition to that, what we found with a sunscreen, if we actually were to put the BEC glycoalkaloids in the sunscreen, it actually gets rid of the keratosis as well. So that's a huge advantage with sunscreen.
So the keratosis is like a dry, crusty spot on your skin that recurs.
Correct.
Got it. I know there are people out there wondering, and I'm sure there's going to be some people out there who've watched this or listened to our interview on the podcast, and they're going to realize, wait, I have one of those. So that's great. That's really helpful. Well, what ongoing research is happening with Curaderm? Is there anything else you'd like to talk about or share that you're excited about?
I'm very excited that we have been able to reach a stage now in which we have conclusively shown that we can get over 95% success rate with the formulation we have, which took over 2 decades in developmental work. So that's a very beneficial effect for us, and we're very pleased to have achieved that. And after having said that, of course, melanoma is the next question we have, is can we treat melanoma, at least at the early stages of melanoma? Because we know it works against melanoma in cell culture work. Not our work only, as you are aware, there are thousands of other scientists who have repeated our work and improved on our observations, etc. So for melanoma, it's very, very promising. Not only for melanoma as a skin cancer treatment at stages 0 to 2, but if it's already metastasized, we feel that by injecting into the metastasized cancer, it could be very effective as well. So that's a different formulation, but with the same active ingredients. We've done so much work with different types of other cancers in animals that if you could get the anti-cancer drug in contact with the cancer cells, no doubt it works. The problem is getting it there in the right form. And this is what I mean. A lot of people are actually have read about the work, and they get the devil's apple or the eggplant and they make an extra and they just mix it with apple cider or whatever, and they just think they could apply it to the skin and they think they've got a treatment. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that easy because within the glycoalkaloid in the plant material, it also has what is known as inhibitors. The way the glycoalkaloid works, it is composed, it is regarded as an amphiphilic molecule, in which part of it likes water and other part of it likes fat. Okay. Now, the part that likes the water is the sugar part, and in our case, it's a sugar called rhamnose, which is a plant sugar not found in human tissue. Now, what has happened with cancer, when a cell becomes cancerous, it actually mutates to a certain extent on the surface of the cancer cell. It mutates what is known as a receptor. Now, that receptor is the receptor that recognizes the sugar part of the glycoalkaloid, and that's how it attaches to the cancer cells. Normal cells don't have that mutated receptor, so it does not affect the normal cells. Now, once it has attached itself onto the cancer cells, the other part of the molecule, the alkaloidal part, becomes very important. That is internalized into the cancer cells. And once it's internalized into the cancer cells, it affects all the subcellular organelles, leading to apoptosis. And that's where the value lies. But of course, for skin cancer, we have to overcome many things to make sure it will penetrate and get in contact with the cancer cells. That's why a lot of people think you can't use an extract applied to skin and things anyway. You may get partial regression, but you'll not get rid of the cancer.
Are there counterfeit products on the market? Counterfeit Curaderm products?
Unfortunately, yes. And that's one aspect which I was very disappointed about. And two aspects, really. When we first observed, got these observations, I thought that at the time it would be very welcome, especially by the specialists in the field, the dermatologists. Unfortunately, they were not very impressed. And for whatever reason, at the time, they went against the Curaderm, and that created a lot of problems for us. But of course, now that all of the work has been done and having published so many publications, etc., they have to accept how effective it is. But it created many, many problems for us because it avoided patients from getting proper treatment with Curaderm. And still as today, we still have that problem. Because the problem we have, in addition to preparing the preparations, is pharmaceutical companies, the big pharmas. They really try, and they try to steal our patents and start all of it. You'd be surprised on what happens on the other side. That's something I don't want to discuss too much because it's a bit negative. All we could say now, at the moment, we've got something great we can offer to the patients, and hopefully the patients will benefit from it.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised at all, and it's a topic that I've discussed many times. The corruption of the pharmaceutical industry and the lengths that they go to destroy competition, right? To eliminate competition. Anything that's from an outside research, independent research, that is not something they can control. Yeah, they tend to reject and try to hack or steal or hijack or destroy. And so, yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. And I'm so glad that you have prevailed. And I obviously this is still something that is not prescribed much by dermatologists, and that many people who use it just find it online, or maybe they read your book, The Eggplant Cancer Cure, somehow find out about you, correct?
And that's correct. But we have distributors in the United States at the moment, and that's available. I will let you know what our website is, and they could look into that, and they could find out where they could get it within the United States.
Good.
With reference to what you've just mentioned also, at the time when we were having these problems, there were one or two things I could have done. I could have said, look, try pour, everybody's against me, they don't want to get this thing on the market. Or I could have done, which I did, and I'm glad I did it this way, is I continued the work and I started to publish the work and publish and publish and publish. So if you have published work, the only way they could actually go against the published work is prove it to be wrong, but they're not being able to do so. So slowly but surely, I've been gaining benefits, and now the time has come in which the only way they could try to contradict this product is to prove it's wrong, and they can't do that because they know how effective it is. So that's where they are at the moment. and they'll have to accept it. With regards to having it available to pharmacies or chemists, we hope to be able to achieve that, but we have to get special approval from the FDA. And I hope we will be able to achieve that. And anybody that can help us in that regard, I'd be very, very welcome. Thank you.
Yes, that would be an incredible accomplishment to get FDA approval, to get into pharmacies, to really get in front of dermatologists and change the industry for the better and help more patients. This is not a new product. It's been around for a long time. And actually, Dr. Cham, I'd like to ask you, because I'm curious, when did this product first come out?
It first came out in Australia in 87.
Wow.
87. It was available over the counter, and the dermatologists didn't like that. They were talking bad about it. And then they started to say it contains toxic materials. And because of that, they put pressure on the health department, who actually then withdrew it from the market and said it should be on prescription only. And being a prescription only meant, of course, you have to go to the dermatologist to get a prescription to use it. And that's the way they try to kill it. But again, by doing the publication, containing the work, etc., at the end, we have overcome.
Yes, you have, and that's amazing. Almost 40 years. In just a few years, that will be the 40-year anniversary of it first coming to the market, which is wild. It really is admirable and a noble pursuit, and I just commend you for that. It's really, really wonderful, the work that you've done. I'm just thankful for you, and I want to make sure people know how to find more about Curaderm, where to order it, where to order the real product, not some counterfeit product. So where can people go?
If you look at our website, which is being fixed up at the moment, it's called Curaderm, bec5.com.
Curaderm, bec5.com.
Exactly. And they will look there, the distributors from all over the world are there. We have quite a few distributors. And they could look at the website of the distributors and choose whoever they would like to get a product from. But the distributors we do have are very, very dedicated people, and they're doing a lot of great work. And I am very grateful for them also by being available to have the products to the public.
That's great. And folks, I just want to encourage you to go through the official site to find a distributor. If you just Google it, you can find people selling a product called Curaderm BEC5, but it may or may not be the real thing. So that's a great resource. So we'll link to that. We'll put a link in the show notes, and so folks can get there. But again, Curaderm bec5.com.
Correct. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Bill Cham, thank you so much. This has been really fantastic. I've been looking forward to this interview for quite some time, and I'm so glad that our teams were able to finally get together. And you're on the other side of the world, and it's it's nighttime here. I guess it's morning where you are. And anyway, yeah, so great to meet you and connect with you in person. Again, thank you for the great work you've done, and we will no doubt you'll have a lot of inquiries, and we will help spread the word. That there is an easy solution for these types of skin cancer, and inexpensive and easy and effective, and let people use it.
Yeah, thank you very much. And also, you should be congratulated yourself. I read, of course, as to how you inspire so much of the public, and that is a huge achievement as well. Congratulations on achieving that. That's excellent. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, everybody, thank you for watching. Please share this video, like it, share it, and help us spread the word about Curaderm. Have a great day. See you on the next interview.